Hello, and thank you for calling in. How's everybody doing today? This is Rich Harshaw, and we are here for a end of the month tactical marketing call. And this is our quick pick webinar. This is actually my favorite webinar. That's not really true. I have a lot of favorite webinars, but I really like this one because it is, like it says on the screen, a little bit of a lot of things. And it's an opportunity to really just kind of cover a lot of different topics in a short amount of time. There's a couple of different resources that I pull from to do this kind of a webinar. One of them is things that have just popped up in my sphere of view, and I see them and I think, oh, that's kind of interesting, let's talk about it. So there's a couple of those kinds of things in here. And the other one are topics and principles that are interesting, that are important, that seem to keep coming up in conversations over and over again, that I feel like might be interesting and useful for the larger group of people that are on this webinar. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go through, I don't know, maybe about 6 or 7 or 8 different things. Some of them we're going to take a little bit of time on, some of them a little bit more time. And some of these topics may be familiar to you. If you're a long-time MYM insider, you may have seen me cover these kinds of topics on other webinars before. If you're a little bit newer, then this will be brand new to you. So let's go ahead and get going here. And we're going to talk about hunting versus farming. And I'm going to do just a quick check to make sure that all of our systems are a go. Okay, they all appear to be a go. Yep, okay. Let's talk about hunting versus farming. We've got the farmer here on the screen. And what I'm really talking about is cultivating next year's sales right now, and the year after that sales right now, and the year after that sales right now. By definition, farming is something that requires seed capital. I heard a story the other day about potato farmers in Russia that had very low yields, and they sent a potato farmer from Idaho over there to help them out. And they said that the typical yield of potatoes was 50, gosh, I can't remember how they measured it, 50 bushels, 50 pounds, 50 something, let's say bushels, 50, I made that up, I can't actually remember if it was bushels or pounds, but anyway, 50 units of measurement. It was a 50 bushel yield per hectares, whatever they are. And wow, what a great story I'm telling you. I can't get anything right, but stick with me. The point is interesting. So they were getting 50 bushels per hectare, and it took 23 bushels of seed potatoes or potatoes to plant to get to 50. So the yield was really, really low. They brought the guy in from Idaho, and he was able, within one growing season on the same land, to increase the yield from 50, which was only about a double. I mean, doubling the output was not very desirable. He got up to 550 bushels from 50, so 11 times the results on the same amount of space. Now, the techniques and tactics were different, of course. He's getting more results for the same energy and effort and so forth expended. The only difference was the expertise and the knowledge, and he knew exactly how to do it. Well, here's what I'm encouraging you to do. I'm encouraging you to look at yourself as a farmer who is growing crops, as opposed to a hunter who's going out and trying to kill stuff to eat tonight or tomorrow, right? Or a fisherman, stated differently. And here's what I found is that when companies are new, when a business first starts, by definition, they have to be hunters because they haven't planted any crops yet to harvest. So they either get good at hunting or they die. One of those two things happens. And because they have to hunt, they tend to develop a proficiency at hunting, especially the ones that actually, survive. And I found that companies that start off small and hunting tend to continue those same methodologies. And when I say hunting in terms of marketing, I'm talking about things that are strictly direct response oriented, things where I plant, or I don't plant, I go out into the marketplace, I spend dollars, and it has to immediately return or else we starve. This would be direct response advertising, direct mail, door knocking, telemarketing, showing up at a show, or some kind of very short turnaround, money spent to money received kind of activity. There's nothing wrong with these things. It's not inherently flawed, but the flaw inherently long-term is that the minute you run into a situation where you don't find anything to eat, where you go out and hunt and can't find anything, there's no game, so to speak, you have a problem. You start to get hungry, and in business that means cash flow. So what we want to do is think more in terms of longer-term farming. Farming would be things like advertising that does not necessarily demand immediate direct response. We could have a long discussion about, is it okay to do direct response advertising? Should you only do direct response advertising? Is non-direct response advertising even worthwhile? And we're not going to have that long discussion. We're going to have the short version of it, which is I'm going to encourage you to do the following. Okay? First of all, ask yourself this question. What percentage of your budget, and I'm talking about marketing and advertising budget, is farming based right now? And that would be things like on the screen, advertising, not necessarily direct response advertising, customer service, referral programs, mailings, etc. Okay? For instance, referral programs. I've helped lots of clients in the past put in referral programs where we send gifts that cost real money to clients after the job is done. And the clients like this idea because they understand the concept of reciprocity. And if I send somebody a gift card after I've, put new siding on their house, that's going to make them more likely to want to give me a referral. They understand that. But when the referral does not immediately come, $50 spent, and the attitude is, well, if I spend the $50 on this gift card, I want to get the referral immediately. And you know what? That's a hunting mentality. I'm encouraging you to look at that as a farming mentality, that if I spend this money now, it will come back to me multiplied, but not for some period of time in the future. Now, this is scary business because you spend money, and if it doesn't come back immediately, you don't really know if it's going to come back long term or not. And that's scary. And I would suggest to you that it's scary for the farmer to go put his seed in the ground and not really know if he's going to have a harvest. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. If there's a drought, there's no rain, that could be a problem for the farmer. If the temperatures are not just right, that could be a problem. If there's bugs that can't be abated with whatever means, then that can be a problem. Any number of things could cause the yield to be low or non-existent, or on the other hand, high and outstanding. But it's a process of faith. And I'm encouraging you to look at your marketing budget, look at it from a farming perspective, and say to yourself, I'm okay spending money that will not come back to me immediately. Now, this money has to be spent intelligently. There's no question about that. You don't just willy-nilly throw money into the marketplace and say, well, it's going to come back some point later, it's farming. That's not it. But I'll tell you this, if you took money, assuming that it's the right kind of thing for your kind of business, and there's lots of scenarios, but let's say that you sell something that is business to consumer. In other words, it's not a business-to-business type of a product. If it's business to consumer, and you take money and you spend it on television or on radio, and you do it how? Consistently. How? Frequently. Here's two good words for you, frequently and consistently. Or if you put that money into somebody's mailbox, and if it's business to business, you put that money into somebody's mailbox, and you do it consistently and you do it frequently, I can promise you that it will pay dividends over the long haul. Okay? What I encourage you to do is immediately increase your farming by 5%. So in other words, if you've got a budget and it's $100,000 per year, and currently it's all hunting, I would encourage you to increase it to 5% farming. Now here's what that means. You're going to spend $5,000 per year that may not come back to you immediately. Now here's the good news. You've still got your 95% that's working for you immediately. If you're spending currently 20% on farming, I'd encourage you to raise it to 25%. it takes a little bit of bite out of the immediate short-term results, but it starts to cultivate for you longer-term results. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, and we could go through and hold discussion about accelerated discontentment and those kinds of concepts, but I'm not going to do that right now. I just want you to generically go with me on this concept. I think your goal should be 50% or more. Now, this is one of those things that requires, looking at individual situations. I don't want to put this as a blanket rule that if you don't do this, your business is doomed or anything like that. But I do want you to think about it. Don't think about it in terms of, hey, he said 50%, so we're currently at 49.2%. We need to raise it by 8.8%. That's not what I'm trying to tell you here. It's a principle, okay? And the principle says the more money you spend on hunting and on farming, the more your business will have an opportunity to grow in the future. And what happens is you start to reap these crops in the future for money that you've already spent in the past, and your advertising cost starts to go down, 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 down over time. Instead of what we typically see with hunting is it tends to go up over time as you exhaust those forests and those beasts that you're hunting, and it's harder and harder to find stuff, especially when you find that there's more and more hunters in the marketplace. Okay, the analogy holds up pretty good. If you're out in the woods hunting for deer and there's a natural supply of deer and you're the only one out there hunting, well, you might do just fine for a long time to feed your family. But if you start to find that there's 10 deer hunters and then 20 and then 100 and there's no new deer being introduced into the environment, then that becomes a problem. Okay, so we've got to hunt. We've got to farm. I keep saying hunting when I mean farming. This is how the big get bigger. It really, truly is. The big get bigger by putting their advertising messages out there, knowing that it may not be an immediate return on investment, but it's going to come back. One of my customers that goes back to 1998 and is not a current customer. I've worked with this company on and off probably 3 or 4 times over the years. One of the best business owners in terms of just quote-unquote getting it is Al Banker Insurance in Fort Worth, Texas. And Al Banker, I was talking to him about his advertising, and he does a lot of television and radio, and he's heavier and heavier into TV advertising for his insurance agency. And I've written a bunch of ads for him in the past and helped him produce a few, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I've been involved with him. But I was talking to him, I guess it was a year or two ago, about his television advertising. And I know he does a lot of advertising, and his ads run constantly on 2 different stations, pretty much around the clock. And I said, Al, do you get a spike in calls when your ads run? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, when your ads actually run, when the ad shows up on TV, at 10:21 a.m., do you get a spike in calls? And he acted like I was asking him the stupidest question on earth. And he said, no. He says, we don't see any kind of noticeable spike in calls. He says, we get calls all the time, all day, every day, from all over the place. He's been advertising for so long, 30 years now, on radio, on television here in the area, that people just know who he is. He's got a toll-free number. We'll talk about that a little bit later on this webinar. And he's built a brand for himself that when people need insurance, they know to call 1-800-THANKS-HAL. Now, when people see the ad, it reminds them, and people do call off the ads, but this is where we're headed, okay? So this is hunting versus farming. Think about that a little bit. We're going to shift gears. Again, this is a quick pick, so we're going to just shift gears. We're going to talk about SEO and getting links. Now, there's a graphic on here, and you see in the middle it's your website, and then you see all of these other websites that are graphically represented on this slide as linking into your website. And what I want you to know is that Google is holding a popularity contest. Google's main goal in life is to make sure that people find stuff that they're searching for. That's their main goal in life. When somebody searches for something, they better find it, because if they don't, then Google will lose that customer. They'll say to themselves, well, geez, I went and searched and all the stuff that came up wasn't really relevant to me. So Google is on this never-ending quest to make sure that when people search for a certain term or phrase, that the websites that come up are the right ones. Now, there's a lot of topics related to SEO. Some of them have to do with keywords. and we could have a discussion about that, but we're not going to. One of the topics has to do with content. And keywords and content are really about letting Google know what kind of information is on a given web page so that Google can match up the information on that particular web page with the information that's being searched for. Okay, so if somebody is searching for an outdoor volleyball set, like I was earlier this morning, then they can find pages that indeed are talking about outdoor volleyball sets. And so the content of those pages. Now, here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to talk about keywords, and we're not going to talk about content per se. It'll be relevant to the discussion, but I want to talk about links. When I say Google is holding a popularity contest, one of the things that they're looking for is how many different websites, other websites, as the graphic would seem to indicate here, are linking into your website. And Google's going to look at that and say, if there's a lot of websites that are having links come to your website, then that must mean that this website is popular, and this must mean that people like this website. So what we want to do for an SEO standpoint, SEO meaning getting Google to rank our site high in its search rankings, is we want Google to say, okay, there's a lot of links coming into this. So that's what links are, other websites that link into your website. So what I'd like you to do is do a quick inventory. How many other websites that, excuse me, that you're aware of have links coming into your website? How many? And the answer should be a lot. And if the answer is anything less than a lot, then this is something that needs to be worked on. Now, when we do SEO services for our clients, this is something that we work on. It takes a little time because, as we're going to discuss here momentarily, it can't just be any old link. It's got to be a relevant link, okay? So how do you get more links? And let's talk briefly about what kinds of links Google is looking for. It's not just looking for sheer numbers, okay? So if you say, well, we're going to go get a bunch of links, and this will be on a bullet point here, what to avoid, and then an action plan. What to avoid is links that come to your site from unrelated, irrelevant websites, because Google's going to look at that very negatively. There's something out there called link farming. This has nothing to do with the farming we just talked about a minute ago. But link farming are companies that you can hire, usually for not very much money, and they will go out there and they will produce a lot of links from, generally speaking, random types of websites that they have an interest or control in that will go to your website. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever searched for something, and when you searched for that something, you came to a web page that just appeared to be a bunch of links on that topic? You know what I'm talking about? So you search, let's say, again, I was talking about this morning, I searched for outdoor volleyball set. And I'm not saying this happened to me today, but have you ever had this happen? You type in something into Google like outdoor volleyball set, and then a page comes up that instead of having information about, you know, some facet of outdoor volleyball sets, it's actually just a page that has additional links to different things related to volleyball. Some of them directly and some of them indirectly related to volleyball. You ever seen these kinds of things before? Well, this is called a link farm kind of a situation. So what happens is companies that own those pages will put a link on that to your website. And Google looks at that and says, I don't really like that. If Google sees that the thing that's being linked from a website about volleyball, or, you know, name any random topic that is coming into your website, Google's going to look at that and say, wait a second, this link doesn't even have anything to do with this company's website. And if it sees that there's multiple links coming into your website from things that are not related to what you do, it's going to be what we call angry at you. You say, well, how can Google be angry? It's a machine. It's not actually a human. Well, I'm telling you, it's kind of an angry human type machine where it's going to look at that and it's going to push you down as a display of its anger in the search rankings, and it's going to treat you poorly. So how do you get more links that are good links? Well, here's what I would do, and here's the action plan. Excuse me. Number one, sit down with a piece of paper and think of any kind of company that you do business with, vendors, suppliers, customers, business to business, especially customers, that could put a link on their website to your website. Okay? This could include things like the Better Business Bureau and any organizations that you're a member of. If you're a member of the National Home Builders Association or NARI or the local Chamber of Commerce or anything that you have an association with, any companies that you're a customer of, get these companies, reach out to them and say, hey, I want a link from your website coming into my website. Number two is you can start to publish content on other companies' websites. Now, to make this happen, you have to be very aggressive and you have to have a plan. What I'm talking about is looking for other companies that would benefit from having information about your general topic on their website. So, for instance, let's say that you are, like one of our new customers, an outdoor living company. In other words, you build outdoor kitchens, you build swimming pools, you build lattices and overhangs and all those fun things that make your backyard a fun place to entertain. Well, you look around and say, well, what kinds of companies would benefit from having information about those types of topics on their website? Well, first thing we got to do is we got to look at it and say, well, what kinds of topics could we write about that are related to this? Well, you could have a comparison of outdoor volleyball sets. This is outdoor living related. You could talk about the benefit of a saltwater pool system versus a traditional chlorine pool system. You could talk about the need for proper drainage. You could talk about different landscaping plans. You could talk about some of the most innovative ideas in outdoor kitchens and barbecue. You could talk about the difference between building a complete overhang versus a sunroom versus a, what do you call those things, awning. You could sit down and come up with and brainstorm, hopefully for your business, 100 different ideas, literally. Maybe start with 30. I gave you just off the top of my head, maybe 6 or 7. Let's see if we can come up with 6 or 7 more. What about for swimming pool? Let's just stay in that genre. What about light features and water features for swimming pools and how those can enhance your swimming experience? What about decks that can stay cool to the touch? In Texas, this is a big issue. You get a swimming pool and it's got a deck and it's really hot. You can't even walk on it. It's a pain. What about umbrellas and the different types of umbrellas and umbrella stands? What about patio furniture and where to get the best bargains, what to avoid, and what lasts the longest and what is the cheapest? These are all things that I'm just coming up with off the absolute top of my head. What else could you come up with? Different types of grass, different types of outdoor games that you can play, things that you can do with children to pass the time, trampoline safety. These are all just outdoor living types of topics that I'm extemporaneously coming up with. What about the best foods to barbecue that you never thought of? What about how to carve watermelons in an interesting way? These are all outdoor living kinds of topics. Now, for your company, you wouldn't want outdoor living kinds of topics. You would want topics that are relevant to your particular business, obviously. But sit down and come up with a list and then write short articles, blog articles, whatever the case is. Come up with content. Now we're kind of going into the topic of content as it relates to SEO. But what if you came up with these topics and then you said, okay, who or what type of organization would benefit from having this type of content on their website? Maybe there would be local newspapers that would like to have that kind of content. And I don't mean the local metropolitan daily newspaper. What I'm talking about is the local smaller town, whether it's a suburb or a small town newspaper, where people go to get the local high school sports scores and the city council minute meetings and the police blotter, that kind of stuff. Maybe those types of organizations would be interested in that kind of content. Or maybe companies that sell some of those kinds of products, the outdoor furniture store, maybe could be induced to publish those things to their customers. And so now what happens is these companies put this stuff on their website and these links are established. Google looks at them and says, wow, here's a company that is a newspaper for this local community in Southlake, Texas. That's where I live. and Southlake, Texas newspaper is publishing this series of articles. Wow, that's a really important website for that local community, and they're linking over to this guy's website who sells outdoor living stuff. That's pretty cool, and it pushes you up the rankings, okay? So your action plan, by way of review, was to get any kind of company that you do business with to link to you. And number two is to think of content that you could write and create, and then think of companies that might want that content and go make it available to them and offer it to them. This is how you get links and your SEO starts to improve, okay? Next thing, let's talk about soft language. This is a really short topic. What I'm talking about here is using language that is not too forward. It's not too aggressive. Now, what I'm talking about is in any kind of environment, particularly one-on-one where you're talking to somebody. It could be on a phone call. It could be in a canvassing or a home show or a trade show type of environment. It could be in a sales meeting. And I'm talking about using soft language. My experience is that we like to train our salespeople, our phone people, et cetera, to use sort of assumptive type language. I call this strong language. And I think there's definitely a time and a place for assumptive, strong language, particularly as you start to wind down the sales process and it's time to get the person to take action. But before that, particularly in a warm-up or in an introductory type scenario, my experience is that hard language is actually counterproductive to the sales process because it makes the prospect feel uncomfortable, like you're trying to impose buying on them. So for instance, you come in and you say something like, well, when are you going to do this? You're making an assumption that they've made the decision to do this, when in fact they might just be looking, and that language makes them feel uncomfortable and they naturally draw back away from you, when in fact what we want them to do is, of course, just draw closer, near to us. So some examples would be things like, when were you thinking about? And I'll have this conversation in the context of a bathroom remodeling company. Well, when were you thinking about remodeling your bathroom? As opposed to, when are you going to remodel your bathroom? Again, remember, I'm talking about here specifically and almost exclusively about during the introductory and warm-up phase of a discussion. This would certainly apply to any scenario where I just met somebody, if it was on the phone or in person at a home show, or if it were in a sales environment where I just showed up to their house and we're just getting warmed up. Also during the middle stages of a sales presentation, this kind of language can also be very helpful. So when were you thinking about doing that? If you did remodel your kitchen, if you did remodel your bathroom, what kinds of things would you be looking for? As opposed to, well, what are you looking for when you remodel your bathroom? I'm telling you, this difference in softness goes a long way towards making a friend out of this prospect instead of making, an enemy is probably too strong of a word, but making them, again, withdraw. Well, have you ever considered adding this kind of feature? Have you ever considered using a wall system instead of tiles? Have you ever considered, well, why were you thinking about remodeling your bathroom? Which is different than, why do you want to remodel your bathroom? Why were you thinking about? Look at that phrase. It's come up twice now on this page, thinking about. I'm giving the person permission to not move forward with the purchase, which is very valuable. Now, the reason that people use assumptive language and strong language is that they feel like they can start to tie people down. Well, when were you going to do this? Oh, well, geez, I guess in the next 2 weeks. And they feel like that language is going to somehow draw them in and start to commit this person. But I'm here to tell you, man, people don't want to commit until they're ready to be committed. And the soft language is expressing openness and friendliness and compassion in an environment where there's an inherent automatic uncertainty and uncomfortableness because it's a sales environment. And I'm telling you, if you'll use this kind of soft language, it can make a huge, huge difference. What kinds of things would you like to have in your bathroom? Would you like to? Not what kinds of things are you going to? So think about that. It's called soft language. Let's go to the design tips portion of our webinar. This is something I like to do on this quick tips. This is a postcard that I received in my own personal mailbox here at my house. And I have a daughter who will be a senior in high school next year. And so this was sent out as a postcard for photographer, for senior pictures. And so this is a fairly standard looking kind of a postcard. Words can't even describe the emotions I felt. I think that's pretty weak. His pictures stand out as true artwork that can only be done by someone with experience, talent, and a love for photography. Your photography makes me feel beautiful, which is how every girl should feel. All this kind of stuff. And these are local high schools here that the kids that are getting this would look at and say, oh, okay, yeah, that's local to me here. Now, I'm the guy that wrote an advertisement one time. It was actually a mailer for a photography company similar to this that said, you've got the ugliest kids I've ever seen in my life, with a subheadline that said, that's what they'll think if you get caught using the wrong photographer. Now, I wrote that as a reaction to typical standard kind of design and graphic layout for photographers, which we're seeing right here. You've got, by definition, you've got the beautiful model who looks, sort of hyper professional. This is not what most people's kids look like. This is what a professional model looks like. So you look at this and, I've always found this to be sort of disingenuous, and, not that people think you're trying to lie to them or anything, but it's just, I don't find it to be particularly effective. I don't think people look at that picture and say, oh, well, that's what I'm going to look like. They know what they're going to look like. They're going to look like them. Now, here's why I'm showing you this piece. When I turned it over, I was completely, totally, utterly blown away, because the second side of this postcard, now, this is a 6-inch by 11-inch postcard. It's the kind I like, big, big, big. When I turned this over, I was completely caught off guard. I was totally unexpectant of what I found, and I absolutely, positively loved it. Now, before I show it to you, I want you to keep in mind one of the things that I want you to know about this is, here's the topic, keeping it appropriate for your target market, because what I'm about to show you would not necessarily be appropriate for all target markets, okay? But it is for this one. So who is the target market for this? Well, it's high school seniors and parents of high school seniors. And here's what it was. It looked like it was handwritten with a ballpoint pen, literally a ballpoint pen, like a Bic. And you can see at the top there, 2014 senior pictures, and on the headline, to make it bold, they kind of scratched over it twice, so it was a little thicker and bolder, the font's a little bit bigger. And this thing here just grabbed me and said, okay, you've got to read this. So let's read it together and just kind of look at it. Again, keep in mind the target market. 2014 seniors can get awesome, underlined awesome, kick butt senior pictures and killer bonuses if, that's a big if, you book early. You see, old people get an early bird special if they eat before the rush, so you get an early bird deal to pick 3 bonuses, and then you can see that the bonuses are in pink, and then you can see down below there's some bonuses. You can see it down at the bottom. If you book a May, June, or July session with George Dean, yes, that George Dean, you've seen his images on magazines, CDs, billboards. Imagine a fashion photographer doing your senior pictures, family portraits. Warning, this card went to 2,567 seniors today. George only has 57 summer slots. Book quickly, plus you lock in 2012 prices. Nice. And then there's a calendar that says the dates that are available, and it's scratched out when they're not available. Book online or call George. And then he kind of, this is almost like something that I would mock up and send to the designer. Sessions, half sessions, full sessions, how to book, GeorgeDeanSeniors.com. Here's the phone number. All these arrows keep pointing to the website. He wants people to know that. Watch George in action at the website, sample pictures at the website. On the left-hand side is bonuses. I found this to be absolutely brilliant, because here's what I know is going to happen. People are going to see this, and they're going to look at it, and they are going to pay attention. That's what's going to happen. In fact, I took this postcard, and I scanned it, and I gave it back to my wife, and she kept it in her pile of stuff to do, because my daughter, in fact, needs senior pictures. And I didn't make any fuss about it with my wife that, oh, this is, so cool, I'm going to go scan it, blah, blah, blah. I just did it. Actually, I didn't even scan it. I just took a picture of it with my phone. So I didn't even have to take it. I just left it there. But she kept it because this demands attention. Okay, it demands attention. So that being said, let's go to the next thing, which is something else that demands attention. I want to show you this commercial. It's a TV commercial. Maybe you've seen this before. There's a pretty good chance that you have, because this video on YouTube has over 14 million views. It's a TV commercial for a taxidermist called Chuck Testa. And it's kind of funny, and it's kind of campy, and it's kind of dumb, but I want you to take a principle out of this, which is very similar to the principle over here, back here to the 2014 senior pictures. And the tip is, if you don't take yourself all that serious, would you agree that this is not taking itself too serious? The front is taking itself very serious. The back, not so much. That people are drawn to it. You know why? Because people, they don't like people that take themselves seriously. Now, a lot of people take themselves seriously, but they're more easily drawn to people that don't take themselves seriously. Okay? So I'm going to show you this video, and to do that, I'm going to hop over to YouTube, where I've got this video up. And actually, I need to go back a little bit here. Okay, I'm going to put this on full screen. Actually, I'm not going to put it on full screen. It'll probably show up better, actually, not on full screen. But I am going to put my microphone close to my speaker. So here we go.
You probably thought this deer was alive, and this coyote was alive, and this pheasant was alive. Nope, they're not. They're dead. They've been taxidermized by Chuck Testa, Lehigh Valley Taxidermy. Specializes in the most lifelike dead animals anywhere. Period. Look at that antelope driving a car. No, it's just Chuck Testa.
Oh no, there's a bear in my bed.
No, Chuck Testa. Hold on a second. There's a leopard sitting on an Impala out on my deck. No, just Chuck Testa with another realistic mount. Shipped to me from anywhere. Call Chuck Testa for the most lifelike dead animals around, period.
Did that rhino just order a drink?
No, Chuck Testa does not taxidermize pets.
Okay. Oh. Okay, yeah, that video has 14 million views. Now, here's why. Number one, it's a little bit funny, but I'm telling you, the biggest challenge in marketing is just stinking getting seen. And the last thing you want to do is blend in. And I'm not telling you to be stupid, and I'm not telling you to be crazy, and I'm not telling you to do idiotic things. I'm telling you to think in terms of something that looks different, something that's got a little bit different edge and feel and look and flavor to it. Get a little bit creative, okay? You know, I've told people this, you know, a bunch of times on this call. I'm the guy that wrote the buy one boob, get one free advertisement for radio for the plastic surgeon, because we wanted people to pay attention. And you think, well, you know, that's offensive and all that, but you know, the reality is we've got to break through the clutter. We don't want to be offensive. We don't want to be ridiculous, but we do want to get seen. Don't be willing to not take yourself so seriously every once in a while. Okay, that's really all I'm trying to tell you here. In that same vein, I want to show you this video. This is for the company Blendtech, and this is part of their Will It Blend series. Now, I've shown this before on a webinar where I was talking about doing demonstrations, and I want to just bring it to your attention again. I think it's funny, but I also think that it's you know, something to think about. What, for your product or service demonstrations, what could you do? Let me show you this.
I love my new iPad. It does a ton of cool things. But will it blend? That is the question. It doesn't quite fit in the jar, but I can take care of that. No! I knew I could get the iPad in a Blend Tech Total Blender, I think I'll press the iBlend button. Woo! Oh, pad smoke. Don't breathe it. Ah, that was one tough pad.
Okay. That's really more just for fun, but I do want you to think about it. I want you to think about this in terms of, you know, what can I do to get a little bit outside of the box, to be a little bit more creative? I showed you Chuck Testa. I showed you the gal, not the gal, the photography company with the handwritten thing. So just think about this a little bit. Oh, will it blend? Yes, it will blend. All right, let's go back over to the PowerPoint here. Let's see if I can get this on here. You know, we are going to not talk about confirmation bias today. Let's talk about, let's see, what can we talk about here? Let's talk about radio advertising, and let's talk about creating a jingle logo. A jingle logo. What is a jingle logo? Well, a 1 to 3 second jingle that you can tag all of your radio and TV commercials with. What we're trying to do is, you know, this goes kind of into that hunting versus farming. This is more of a farming type of a tactic. What we want to do is if we run a radio commercial or TV commercial, we want something on there that is an audio cue to the viewer or listener that this is that particular company. I think probably the two most famous jingle logos of all time, number one has got to be McDonald's, which is their I'm Lovin' It campaign. And we probably all know how that goes. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, right? I'm not much of a singer, but we've all heard it 1,000 times. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, I'm loving it. And they don't even have to say I'm loving it. They can just do the ba-da-ba-ba-ba, and people know, okay, that's McDonald's. And then the other one that's famous is Intel. Do-do-do-do, right? StubHub's got a famous one. It has a buzzer like the end of a basketball game, and the guy goes, StubHub. Kind of like the guy selling hot dogs at the ballpark would yell, hot dogs. So these are logo jingles, but they're not exclusively for massive companies like McDonald's or Intel or StubHub. You can consider creating one for your company. Because an audio version of your printed logo. And what we're trying to do is just get people to remember it, and it allows us to then, let's go back to this concept of farming. Assuming that we're farming a TV station or a radio station, it allows us after a while to do something that's very interesting. So let's say that I'm running a radio ad on a particular station for 6 months, and I run 60-second ads, maybe a few 30-second ads, but I'm really trying to get established on that station to get people to know who I am, get the frequency sufficiently high that people have heard my ad enough to not just know that I exist, but also to know, you know, what I really stand for and what our selling points are, identity, and all those kinds of things. And let's say that after 6 months, I've done a pretty good job of that. Well, I have the ability now to increase my frequency on a station, but actually spend less money, because what I can do is, let's say that for the first 6 months I was running, let's say just for grins, I mean different stations depending on their listenership, it's going to depend. But let's just say that I run 3 commercials a day, 5 days a week. So that's 15 commercials a day that are 60 seconds long, and I run 2 commercials a day that are 30 seconds long. Now 30-second commercials have less time, obviously, available to sell and to communicate. So we're going to start out with a schedule that is strong with 60-second spots and 30-second spots, but we're going to tag all of these spots with our jingle logo. Okay, so at the end of the jingle, at the end of the commercial, they hear this jingle logo. Well, as I move into the second and third 6 months, I can now start to run shorter ads. So now maybe instead of 3 60s per day and 2 30s, maybe now I run 1 60 and 2 30s, but now I can come in there and I can start to buy 10 and 5-second commercials, and I can have my name, and it's what they call a name and claim. So I can say the name of my company, my tagline, and then I can throw my logo jingle in there. Da-da-da-dum, ba-da-ba-ba-ba. And I start to condition people to hear this and to go, oh, that's that company, that's that company, that's that company, that's that company. And this is a good strategy for long-term branding. Again, it goes in with this discussion of farming, okay? Communicate your brand promise, your logo jingle, and we won't go into details about how to create those or what to say in them, but just keep that in mind. If that's something that you're involved in, radio and TV advertising, you might want to consider that. Let's talk about vanity numbers. I recommend using a vanity number, something that's easy to remember. It's good for branding. I strongly recommend 800 numbers, not 888 or 877 numbers. I'll frequently get asked this question. Well, what about using local numbers? And the problem with local numbers is that it's not necessarily easy to find local numbers that spell something, although one of the tools that I'm about to show you has recently added a local number search. So if you're in a smaller area where there's fewer area codes, then you might want to do that. I don't recommend it. If you live in Dallas, Fort Worth, like I do, I don't recommend local numbers at all, because if you're running on the radio in Dallas, then people in Dallas and Fort Worth are going to see that. Well, in the immediate vicinity, there's 972, 940, 817, 214. There's at least 4, and then there's like 2 or 3 newer peripheral area codes. And you just don't want people to have to stop and think. If you advertise a 214 area code and people in Fort Worth hear it, they're not going to call, because they're going to assume that that's somebody in Dallas. Same goes for Dallas. If you have an 817 phone number, a Fort Worth area code, people in Dallas are probably not going to call it. Doesn't mean they won't call it, but it's going to hurt your results. 800 numbers, my experience is that they've been around long enough. People understand it's toll-free. It's just an easy way to get people to understand what your phone number is. If you have an 877 or an 888 or, heaven forbid, an 866 or 855, just don't do that. It confuses the heck out of people. Not everybody knows that it's toll-free. A lot of people look at them and they don't even know what it is. AT&T would like you to think otherwise. They try to make you vote for American Idol with 866 numbers because they're trying to get people to understand what it is. Don't do it for your business. Don't do 888. People recognize 888 as being toll-free, but I've found through hard experience that even when you have an 888 number, there are still a percentage of people that will still dial 800 instead of 888, even if they're looking right at it when they're dialing it, because it's so ingrained in them that toll-free is 800, okay? And I've got some stories I could tell about that, but I don't have time. Just believe me when I say you want 800, all right? You can get a phone number that spells something, or you can get a phone number that is repeaters, phone numbers that have numbers that are easy to remember. I actually prefer repeaters because they're just actually easier than people trying to say, okay, 1-800-EXPRESS, EXPR. I mean, people can do it, and it's much better than a random phone number, but I kind of like repeaters. Here's some resources for you. There's a website called tollfreenumbers.com, and I want to take you to it here for just a second and show you how it works. It's pretty cool. Okay, so I've got it up on my screen here, and what you do is you type in to this engine here up at the top what phone number you want to search for. So it gives you a choice. Do you want 888, 877, 866, 855? 8** means any toll-free number. I always choose 800. See, I can change this to where I choose 877s or 855s. I don't really recommend it, though. I go 800. And then you come in here and you type whatever number you want to search for, and you use stars where you give it the flexibility to put anything in there that you want. So, for instance, I typed a search for 800-555****. So that could be 800-555 and then any 4 numbers. And then it shows me what came up, 1-800-555-8918. I don't think that's a very good number. 800-555 4028, 3128, and you can go on and look so on and so forth down the road. And here's what you'll see on here. Anything that comes up positive as a match, you'll see that it's available, and they will sell you this number for, in this case, $999. You say, well, geez, that's a lot of money. Well, over here on the right, if you want to pay only $99, you can get these numbers that are sort of random. I don't really recommend that. Or if you look down here below, you'll see that it'll give you numbers that are going to become available soon, okay? So 800-555-04111. That's not really that bad of a number. So you can just kind of look at that, but you can search anything you want. So we come in here and say, okay, I want to search 1-800, and let's say I'm a home improvement related company, so I'm going to see **** HOME. Let's see if anything comes up. Now it's going to ask me to fill this in to make sure I'm not a robot. And let's see what comes up. Do-do-do-do-do, I'm loving it. Do-do-do-do-do, it's taking a while. This usually takes about 5 or 10 seconds. Come on. There we go. Okay, so here's what it shows. 1-800-214-HOME. This number was changed recently and becoming available. You can back order it. Nobody's back ordered it yet. So what happens is if you back order it, then this company, when it does become available, will immediately grab it for you. That's not a bad phone number. 1-800-345-HOME. That's a great phone number right there. This number was disconnected just over 4 months ago, was already taken. So you missed it, but you can still get the 214. 1-800-407-HOME. This number is already back ordered. So you have to look on here, and you see this number was changed and recently disconnected, becoming available, back order. So there's really only 2 that are available to back order, 897-HOME and 214-HOME. So those might be good ones to get. Now the maximum they're going to charge you for that, I think, is about $1,000. Let's see, if I wanted to get this, I click back order. Okay, for an 800 number, it's going to be $795. And it's going to cost you $4.95 to put the request in. Okay? Now, I don't know if that means that you automatically get that, but what they're going to do is the instant, well, let's see right here. Just sure you get it disconnected. Regular phone companies can't see, blah, blah, blah. We'll research the number and try to get it when it first comes to disconnect. Disconnected numbers are very hard to get, take more time and effort. We charge $4.95 to place the back order fee. You only pay the back order fee if we're able to get the number after it comes out. When we give you the proof of ownership, it's your number. Now, the great thing about this is that when you get these numbers from this company, you own these numbers. You own them forever. Well, as long as you keep them, you gotta, you gotta hook it up to your long distance phone service, and you gotta keep paying for it. But once you pay this $9.95 or $7.95 or $99 for the cheaper numbers, you own that number. You don't have to rent it. There's companies out there that will rent you numbers. A company that I've used in the past is called 1-800-RESPONSE. But I don't really like that service. I'll tell you why. They've got really good numbers. This is a company, 1-800-RESPONSE, owns every phone number that starts with 1-800-NEW, N-E-W. So they own 1-800-NEW-HOME, new car, new life, new health, new slim, everything that's 1-800-NEW something, they own it. And I could tell you a story about how they own it, but for now, just suffice it to say they own it. The problem with that company is they will not sell you that phone number. They will rent you that phone number on a per area code basis. So when somebody calls, they will detect where that customer is calling from, and they will direct calls that originate from certain area codes into your 800 number. So multiple companies will share the same number. So if you live in New York City and you have 1-800-NEW-HOME, a company in Dallas that has 1-800-NEW-HOME will only receive the Dallas-based calls. The New York company will only receive the New York-based calls, if you understand what I'm saying. The problem with that is they're going to charge you a monthly fee for that service, and it's going to be quite expensive. And the reason it's going to be quite expensive is because nowadays almost any city has multiple area codes. So if I was in the Dallas area, I have to buy that service for 214, for 972, and for 817 as a bare minimum, but I also probably want 940 and whatever the other new ones are. I can't even remember. So I've got maybe 4 or 5 different area codes that I've got to buy this number for, rent it actually. And the problem with this is that I'm now stuck paying these people rent forever if I want to keep that number. And for instance, let's say that I keep that number for 5 years and then I decide I don't want it anymore. If I've spent money building equity with that phone number in the marketplace, then I'm going to have people calling me, per our farming discussion earlier, on a phone number that no longer rings to me. So I don't recommend it. What I do recommend is using tollfreenumbers.com. I would actually rather have a little bit worse number, but one that I own and control and don't have to pay for the rest of my life to get a number that works. So what you can do is you can just come in here and play around with this thing. 1-800, let's see, maybe we say home, ****. Let's see what that comes up with. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm loving it. All right, and I'm going to let you go here in just a second. This will be the last thing that we do. Okay, so here's what came up. I could back order a bunch of these. 1-800-HOME 104, home 124, home 149, home 154, 1-800-HOME 182, 1-800-HOME 308, et cetera, et cetera. Disconnected almost 4 months ago. Available any day. Back order right away. Okay, that one's going to be pretty soon. 1-800-HOME 443. And you know, I'm not saying, hey, you love these numbers, but it's just a good way to find stuff. I had a client in Philadelphia one time, and we went in here and looked for 1-800 ****1776 Philadelphia, right? And at the time, nothing was available. Let's see if something's become available now. If the number is currently available, it'll just tell you, hey, it's available right now. For the more popular searches, you're going to probably have to back order it and then take your chances with it. But it's worth it. Spend the time. Let's see what comes up for 1776. Okay. All right. So I can get 724, 1776, 887, 1776, and so forth. So that gives you an idea. Then it'll give you some alternatives, 800, 776, etc. I've got a project that I'm working on right now that has the word 0 in it. So we might come in here and do ****0 and see if anything comes up. So you get an idea of how this works. One more thing I want to show you on here is a website called phonespell.org. This is a website called phonespell.org, phonespell.org. And this is an interesting website because it allows you to come in here and say, okay, if I want to find if I want to get the phone number, for instance, we've got a client that is Bordner's out of Kansas City. So we might come in here and say Bordner, and it'll just tell me what that phone number is, 267-6377. But it'll also do it backwards. So I can come in here and I can say, well, if my phone number was area code 1-800, but I could get 665-4498, it'll show me what kinds of things I could spell with that. So for that particular number, 665-4498, no jig 98, on jig 98, you know, probably not the best word, but it'll tell me every imaginable scenario. So let's put somebody's random phone number into here. Their phone number is 239-8753, and let's see what kinds of words it spells. Okay, and it'll show me down here. Add yup 53, AX us 53, you know, nothing good is coming up here. AX 98 slew. But this is an interesting tool to help you see. I mean, you can come in here and just plug in your own phone number right now and see what comes up. What's your phone number? Now, here's what you need to know. Zeros and ones are not going to spell anything because on your phone, if you'll notice, those don't have letters associated with them. So if your number is 239-0307, it's not going to spell anything because the zeros in your phone number don't have letters associated with them. So just keep that in mind. This is just an interesting little tool. Let's go back over to toll-free numbers. I searched for 0. 1-800-2780 is becoming available. 5970 is already taken. 6060, I kind of like that. 1-800-6060. So I could come in here, back order that, and then when that becomes available, I could have that. So that's my recommendation, is that especially if you're in the business of having radio or TV advertising or billboard advertising, or you've got trucks with your name and phone number on it, you're going to want something that's easy for people to remember. So that's it. That's our quick fix for today. Hope you enjoyed it. We will be off for the next 2 weeks. No webinars for the next 2 weeks as I take my traditional 4th of July vacation. So I hope that you have fun on your 4th of July. If you happen to be in South Africa or Canada, like some of our members are, then maybe it's not 4th of July for you. It will still be the 4th of July, but it's not a holiday. But nevertheless, have a good 4th of July week next week, and we'll talk to you thereafter. Thanks so much. Talk to you later. Bye now.